So I prepare by speaking. Like I said, I've given 65 presentations this year, and I try to learn from everyone. I video all the ones that I can, and I watch it, and I still cringe, thinking, smile, Thom, smile, do something, move. So I think you constantly have to realize that, you're not the best. And I'm really active in the National Speakers Association. A couple of years ago, Mark Scherenbrock closed the conference with a speech where I leaned to the person next to me and said, I have to quit the industry because I can never be that good. And there was never anything that was that inspiring. I mean, he's such a master storyteller that he made me up my game. And I know I got better by watching people who are just that great.
Yeah. I love that. I love that story because, I think that even looking for stories in your day-to-day life and looking for stories and examples, even if you're not a speaker, this is really, really helpful for people to do because we learn from storytelling. And so even if you're not thinking about getting up in front of 800 people, but instead you're just thinking about telling a compelling story that's going to get your point across and help you to get further on what it is that you're trying to achieve at work. Having a good story that you're able to tell so that people understand and they go on that journey with you is something that can compel you towards success and propel you towards success.
Well, and they've done research. It's stories that stick in our mind. So it's one of those things that, when man sat around the campfire 2,000 years ago and the leaders of the tribe or the community were teaching the next generation, they didn't pass out PowerPoints and graph charts. They told stories about how you hunt and how you farm and how you move to the tribe and, all this stuff. It was all done through story. I mean, generations of mankind were educated through story. Our minds are wired to remember a story. So when I teach people presentation skills, I say every point, every graph has to have some sort of a story. And people remember, I was getting on a plane last year, and I'm putting the thing in the overhead, my bag in the overhead, and this guy said to me, "Did you speak at New York Life once?" I had to think about it. It had been like 7 years earlier. Like, I don't even think I was a professional speaker yet. I'm like, yeah, I said, that was my first day of work. And he turned to his wife and told her a story that I told in the keynote. And I was like,
wow.
And if you've ever heard me speak before, it was the story about my daughter, Kate, and how we found the doctor who essentially saved her life when she was a newborn. And that was a point about why you treated people well. He turned to his wife and recited the story exactly, and then turned to me and said, "How is Kate?" And it was like, how do you remember that 7 years later? But
I actually remember that story. You were the conference catalyst, I think, at Great Ideas, and it was in Colorado Springs. And I remember that story. Yes.
People always people remember the stories that you tell. So what I tell people is even if you're not a speaker, keep a story journal of things that happen to you or things that happen in your office or that you see happen at a conference, things that are relative to your career or your industry. Because if you ever have to give a speech, you can go and just pull out those stories and just keep them in a journal somewhere.
Wow. A little while back, I started trying to collect stories, and it's actually harder than it sounds because I find myself telling stories all the time, not like lying. That's not a euphemism for lying. But I find myself telling stories, but the connecting point, the part that I don't do so well is it makes sense when it's in the flow of a conversation and I'm getting a point across. It's not necessarily, I'm not as good. I'm getting better, but I'm not as good at being able to connect it to a point that I'm trying to make so that that story is one of my stories that is an example of sticking with something or an example of a time I failed and then overcame it, or you know what I mean? And I'm trying to like group them in my head, sort of like catalog them, but it's hard. It's a different kind of thing.
And you can't tell a story just to tell a story. It really has to match the point. And so if I have a point, I literally will go through, where I store stories. Or I actually saw a speaker who said something very interesting, and that is, think about all the places that you've ever lived or places that you've been on vacation, and then walk your mind through those different places you've lived and think about something that happened there. And just keep thinking about stories. So think of the first house you live in and just think of what happened there. And then was there a person? Was there a place? Was there a thing? And you just keep going through all the places you've lived or places you've worked or whatever, until all of a sudden you get an aha moment. And I've had to do exercises like that because I have a great point.
I love that.
Like, yeah.
I just came up with one as you were talking. I just came up with one, and now I'm like,
write it down.
I need to investigate that. Yay. Well, that is so fantastic. We're nearing toward the end of our time, and I think I could talk to you forever. I have so many more questions, but I want to bring us back around to talking a little bit about the paradox of potential and, bringing people to the point where they can take that next step. So understanding that whoever's listening to this right now, whoever is listening to this later, we're all coming from different places. But if somebody's listening to this right now and they want to learn from the paradox of potential and make the right next step, what should they do?
I think they need to go back and identify, do they have a plan? Do they really set goals? Are they clear? Do they know what success looks like? Because I think so often success, or the person who could bring us success, could sit down right next to us at a conference. And if we don't know that we need a certain company or a certain job title or a certain type of person, we introduce ourselves, we totally miss it. We need to know what success looks like, and then we need to reverse engineer it. So goal setting isn't wishing and hoping and dreaming. It's actually reverse engineering the steps you need to take. So I think that plan is really important. And I think being clear on your why. What is your purpose? Why do you want to reach those goals? I've set a ton of goals in my life that I couldn't answer that question on the why. And then one of two things happened. I either reached them and they were shallow or unfulfilling, or I never reached them at all because I didn't really have a purpose. I didn't even know why I was doing it. It just, I want to make X amount of money. Well, yeah, we all want to make, I want to make $1 million. Well, I didn't make $1 million. Why? Because I didn't really know. I didn't have a purpose. It just sounded like a big number that somebody gave me.
Sounded
and then
fancy.
the third thing is go back to people. Remember that all opportunities in your life come from people. And if you're more of an introvert, it's okay. Being an introvert doesn't mean you don't like people. It means you get drained from big crowds. It's where you get your energy levels. Extroverts thrive in a big crowd. Introverts don't. Be true to who you are. I mean, don't force yourself into situations where you're not comfortable. But if you know you have to work harder at doing the networking thing, then make sure that you've thought it through, you've worked it out, you've given yourself. I always say to my introvert friends, my wife included, I always say, when you go to one of these things, make it a numbers game. I have to meet 3 new people and have like conversations that last at least 7 minutes. And if I meet 3 of them, I can go home. And I've literally had people come up going, after 3 people, it wasn't so hard. I stayed the rest of the night. So, make it a numbers game so that you know why you're meeting people, you have a purpose and a plan for meeting them. And then you merge those 3 things together. And then also realize that it's okay that you're not reaching all your goals. One of the things I found is that some people, they have other priorities. It's not, their purpose isn't work. So they're taking care of aging parents. They have a sick spouse. They have a kid who's going through something like maybe Kate went through 15 years ago. It's okay. If it's not your priority right now, don't beat yourself up. I had a woman at this thing I did said thank you, because we talked a lot about that. She said, thank you, because I'm taking care of a sick aunt. And when I'm with my aunt, I feel guilty about work. When I'm at work, I feel guilty about my aunt. She goes, she told me in an email, she goes, I went and met with my boss, who's been very supportive. And he said, don't feel guilty about work. He's given her, the nod that it's okay. And she said it was the first time in 6 months she wasn't beating herself up. Wow. Don't beat yourself up if it's not your priority. You have to be honest with who you are and what you're trying to accomplish, and make sure your ladder's against the wall you want, not one that your spouse or your kids or your mom and your dad or society has told you to put it against. Because I'll tell you, I put my ladder against the wrong wall for 25 years. And, that's bad.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my gosh. See, what you just said there, I could go for another hour talking with you just based off of that. So this has been absolutely phenomenal. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thom, what's the best way for people to find you online and connect with you?
So I'm all over all the social buttons, if you will. But you can find me at thomsinger.com, and that's THOMSINGER.com. But Kiki, I'll tell your audience a little secret. If later all you remember is Thom Singer and you spell it TOMSINGER.com, you'll still get to my website, because I own Thom Singer spelled THOM Singer, and I own TOMSINGER. It'll just redirect you to the right place.
How awesome. See, that's a man who's thinking. He's a smart guy. All right.
Well, because people forget that it's THOM. So long ago, I picked up both.
Yeah, with a name like Kiki, I don't run into that very often. They usually find me somehow. So for all of you, thank you for listening and joining with us today in Association Chat, learning about the paradox of potential. If you find this content valuable, please subscribe to the podcast, share on Facebook, leave a comment in the chat or on the Association Chat website. And as a reminder, you can always catch each week's live episode as an audio podcast on Fridays, on iTunes, on Google Play, on Stitcher. Just look for it and you'll find it. Until next time, everyone, keep asking questions to learn every day. As Joseph Campbell once said, the cave you fear to enter holds the treasure you seek. Bye, everyone. Thank you so much, Thom. Thanks for listening to Association Chat. If you like our show and want to know more, check out associationchat.com or please leave us a review on iTunes. It would mean so much. You can share your thoughts with us in the comments, tweet us, or tell us online with the hashtag assnchat, the hashtag we all know and love with a wink and a smile. And we hope to see you next time.